Hello, and welcome to the Planter Podcast, where we talk about gardening and we try to make it easier for you to grow your own food. I'm one of your hosts, Peter Keefe, and I garden in Connecticut.
I'm Mylan. I'm an urban gardener based in Atlanta, Georgia.
And I'm Erin. I'm a market gardener in Huron County, Ontario, Canada.
All right, we are back together in the middle of summer, and it is hot. Let's just do a little weather report. It's like 85, I think, right here. How hot is it for you, Mylan?
Today's not too bad. We're somewhere around 80, actually 80 today. We've been getting thunderstorms, really heavy. But I kind of like it because it gets us a break from the 95, 98 degrees that we had last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I estimate we're probably around 80, 85 here as well.
Okay.
And for the last few weeks, we've had heat, but then the thunderstorms to kind of break the heat and bring the rain. It looks like this coming week is going to be, a drought week. So not necessarily ripping hot temperatures, but no rain until the weekend. So definitely going to keep on the watering.
So you know what this extreme heat makes me think of? Fall. Not really, but this is like kind of the time of the summer where it's so counterintuitive. Like at the hottest part of the summer is when you need to start thinking about the cooler season that's coming up, fall. And it's so that's gonna be our topic today, is like, what can you do to plan for your fall garden? And how can you possibly do that when it is like 80 or 90 degrees outside and the sun is blaring at you, and the bugs are also at their peak? And so we're just going to go over some tips for how to do that. So I think what we should do is each one of us should pick like one plant that we're excited to grow in the fall, and like what you could do to do it. And we haven't, just like behind the scenes here, we have not planned this at all. We should probably plan it next time. But I guess I'll go first because I'm already blabbering here. I'm growing a fall cucumber batch right now. I didn't actually plant the seeds. My son did just yesterday. And we're growing them in pots. And the goal is to keep those separate, away from all of the bugs that might cause diseases and, cause that first flush of cucumbers to die. And then when that's all dead and I've taken it out of the garden, we're going to put these in. So that's the plan. Truthfully, last year I tried this also. It did not work out. But if you don't succeed at first, try again. So yeah. How about you? Yeah.
It's always good to have backup cucumbers because once they're on their way out, they're on their way out, right?
Yeah.
There's no saving them. So it's good to just, replant another round for later.
Yep. And they come and go so fast, and there's really nothing you can do once a cucumber plant starts going in decline. It looks like, oh, maybe you'll be able to save it, like cut off the diseased leaves, and no, it's usually better to just free up that space for something else in your garden, and pick the rest of the cucumbers. And but there's one thing you can do to prevent cucumbers from going in decline, and that is picking cucumbers before they turn yellow. And it's really hard to do that all the time because they are sneaky and they hide. It's like playing a game of I Spy sometimes.
Green on green.
yeah. But if you manage to like get lucky and catch them all, you can prolong your harvest for a little bit longer. Yeah.
So do you do succession sowing, like in separate containers when your cucumbers start to decline, to have another plant ready, or do you just go direct sow again?
I don't know if it's like succession sowing. It's more just there's the normal summer cucumbers, and then I'm growing like the August, September cucumbers, and that's going to be it. Because then late September, the temps are going to get down so low. So I'll get two batches basically, if I'm lucky, if it works out.
Do you switch varieties?
I personally don't. I like to grow them for pickling. And those are already some of the quicker cucumbers. So like anything you're growing in the fall, especially things that fruit like cucumbers or tomatoes, you're going to want to make sure that it's, or like other squashes, you're going to make sure that it's a fast crop from like sprout to harvest. If you're choosing like the 70-day harvest cucumbers that grow really big, it might not work out. You might not get a bunch before the frost comes. Maybe in your area, Mylan, I think that would be just fine. But in my area, I'm like, I don't think I would want to risk it. So I'm growing like the little ones that it should be probably like a month and a half. I should start seeing flower buds and maybe some cucumbers.
So I'm going to put everybody on the spot real quick. If you got your phones close by, go ahead and pull your first fall frost date.
Yeah.
And let's also compare how many growing days we have left, because that will kind of help us pick some variety. So for me, here in Atlanta, my fall frost date is projected to be November 9th. And that leaves me at 118 days left until my first fall frost. So that gives me really a second summer / spring. It's just in reverse. So I actually still have a lot of room to grow a lot of crops.
Nice.
Mine is October 13th.
Okay.
So it says 91 days until my fall frost date.
And what about you, Erin?
Yep, I'm October 9th.
Okay.
I do find like your frost date, remember, that's just an average. So I always feel like I get a little more leeway. Like I find the spring one is, kind of accurate, but in the fall, I often find you get a little more wiggle room. But yeah, according to Planter, what does that give me in terms of days? 87 growing days until fall frost.
Yeah, you don't need to do math. Just download the app.
That's the thing. I used to literally have to go on a spreadsheet and be like days between, and then now I just go in Planter.
And this is something I recently added, the fall frost date probability. So it's not specific to fall, but you can switch it. Like right now I've got it on 50%. So that is half of the time the frost is going to come before that and mess you up. And then the other half of the time is going to be after that date. But if you switch it to the 30%, now my fall frost date is October 8th, which is a little bit more conservative. And then like that means 3 out of the 10 times that I'm going to get bit by that frost before October 8th. And then 7 out of 10 times it should be after that. So you can always, if you want to switch that date and be on the safer side, you can do that. I think by default it's 50%, but yeah.
But to your point with the cucumbers, Peter, so there's the frost date, which is, for a lot of plants, that's kind of your hard cutoff. But then, for a plant like cucumbers that really likes the heat, once it starts to cool down, it just sort of struggles at that point. So it's not dead, but it's not at full productivity anymore either. So think about that too when you're choosing your varieties. It's not just about like, oh, this variety, matures in 75 days and I've got 80 days. Like, yes, like it's also kind of thinking about,
And that's under ideal conditions, they'll mature in those days. So we're also past the summer solstice. So they're not going to get as much sun. So it's, maybe it'll take like 25% longer to get to that fruiting stage. You never know. Yeah,
for sure. And with cucumbers too, you want to have ideally some weeks of fruit. Like you don't want it to just fruit and then a week later, like boom, it's gone. So again, it's not, try things. Like that's the thing. As long as you don't get too preoccupied, try it, right? You kind of never know what the weather's going to do. Sometimes we get, early fall heat waves. It's happened, right? So if you don't know, worst you can do is try, and if it works, it works. And just go into it with the right mindset of like, is this a sure thing, or is this kind of leaning towards experimental?
And as I found out last year, I think it's in my area, it is more experimental, but I'm willing to try it again. And then if it doesn't work out this year again, I'll probably give up and just be happy with the one batch of cucumbers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So, Aaron, since you have the earliest fall frost, what's on your agenda?
Well, since we're picking one plant, I'll talk about my one plant and then I'll just give kind of an overview. So the one plant I was going to say right now is actually beans. So beans like the heat, but this is actually, I find I have really good luck with growing beans into the fall because they actually like to be planted into the heat.
Yeah.
And they mature pretty quickly. So the variety I'm growing is called Provider. It's just a green bean. And it matures, 50, 55 days, give or take. So I could get, 1 or 2 successions in still for this year. It gives the plant a chance to grow in the conditions it loves and start producing. And then whatever happens at the tail end, frost comes early, it's like, well, I've already got a harvest. If frost comes late, it's like the beans are still going on. So I really love fall beans. And also, like, when you plant your first round of beans in the spring, if the soil is too cool and damp, you can have a lot of issues with rotting, especially if you're not using a treated seed. And I grow, organically, so I don't. So sometimes you're really anxious to get that first crop of beans in the spring. But if the soil is still a little too cool or you get too much rain, then it's, donezo, right? But this time of year, great time to sow beans. And then the added perk with Canadian Thanksgiving, we usually hit our Thanksgiving around mid-October. So then you've got, still garden fresh green beans for your Thanksgiving table. So it's like a really nice confluence of like the conditions that beans like, a good safe maturity window. And it's actually a time of year where you would like to eat beans too. So
now the Provider variety that you mentioned, is it a bush bean or a pole bean?
It's a bush bean. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was just thinking like pole beans do take quite a bit longer, so it's probably best if you're planting beans. You probably could get away with a pole bean, but you're going to get a lot more from bush beans.
For sure. Yeah. And again, depending on what your window is, like Mylan's got a lot more leeway. I'm a lot more constricted. So definitely check those days to maturity on your varieties because there's such a huge range between different varieties. So sometimes you think you can grow things and it's like, actually, this one takes a lot longer. And sometimes you can find really fast maturing varieties. So yeah, no, that's a really great point, Peter. And then I guess just my overall general sense right now is, to me, this is the time of year to do a big garden reset because, a lot of your spring stuff has already gone by the wayside. The weeds are pumping, right?
Bolted up, yeah.
Yeah, like again, the tomatoes and all that good stuff, that's still coming and that's still pumping. But like, this is the time of year where you look out and you see things and it's like, oh, that's dry and that's going and that looks a little beat up. So it's like just hard garden reset, right? Like it's almost like clean slate, fresh start, pull out whatever's not, producing anymore. It's just been overtaken by the weeds and just, the back half of the season is it's just like spring all over again. Just start fresh.
Yeah. All right, Mylan, what are you anxious to grow for the fall?
Since we only get to pick one, I'm going to go.
Well, I think we could do another one after this one. Another round.
My first pick, though, would be collards, right? Because they are a fantastic transitional plant. Much like what Aaron was just talking about with the beans, collards take off getting that early heat, right? But if they do get, maybe an earlier frost than projected, they actually will be mature enough to benefit from that frost. And it's said that they sweeten up after that first frost. The texture can change, when they get a little bit of frost and freeze, and getting them to that point of maturity is the key to success there. So that would be my number one pick. And like Aaron said, our Thanksgiving rolls around late November, and then doing a couple rounds of succession planting, I'll have full mature crops ready for Thanksgiving harvest.
Nice. And the point you made about the frost, like it is actually astounding how big of a difference that frost actually makes to the flavor. Like
Hmm.
I'm not the biggest fan of kale, for example. It's like, it's okay. You know, if it's in a salad, I'll eat it, but I don't really go out of my way.
Hmm.
But then I've tried kale that's been like really hit by a hard, you know, not just a little light frost, but like really hit by a hard frost, and it's like so sweet.
Hmm.
Whereas normally it's just kind of bland and chewy, and like it is actually pretty mind blowing how big a difference the frost makes.
Yeah, and that's, we got several crops like that. A lot of the root crops, the starchier crops, they benefit from that. So that's why I do quite a bit of the brassicas, I guess I would say sturdier leafy greens, and then the root crops. That's kind of the perfect time for those. But you have to take what I would say not advanced, but you do have to take more steps during this time of year if you don't have the ideal conditions. So in my case, that's going to be still a little too hot for brassicas and things of that nature to be fully
Yeah.
exposed. So I'll do, start seeds in the shade if I'm doing outdoor, maybe use some shade cloth or something like that. But what are you all doing in your environments?
Mhm.
Yeah, I would love to do some more collards and like some cabbage and broccoli, but I'm just too afraid it would just bolt and then not be able to head up like if it was a cabbage before I got all the frost. So, I don't know. Aaron, have you ever tried doing like a fall thing of cabbage, like where you are? Does that
Yeah,
work?
100%. Yeah. So we usually do, I'm not going to do it in my own market garden, but in the past, we've done spring brassica and fall brassica planting. And I've actually had more luck with the fall brassica planting, to be
Okay.
honest. So the one key point to Mylan's point, and I actually meant to mention this on the last podcast as well when we were talking about growing lettuces and things in the summer heat.
Hmm.
You absolutely need to be transplanting in the summer, like hands down. I mean, maybe there's some places that are mild enough that that's not the case, but if you're dealing with any kind of heat in the summer, you want to have nice, healthy seedlings to go in the ground. You don't want to be trying to, put seed down because it's really hard to keep it moist. In some cases, the soil is just too hot for it to even germinate. So start with nice, healthy seedlings, and you'd want to be starting right about now for the fall brassicas. And again, anything you can do to alleviate heat and drought stress. So, consistent moisture, if you have some shade cloth, I wouldn't leave the shade cloth on the whole time it's growing because these big brassicas, they do really need, the full sun to get there in time. But you could put it on maybe for the first 10 days or 2 weeks while the seedlings are getting established and when the summer heat is really intense. And the one other thing too is like this is the time of year when the daylight hours are declining. So in the spring, you're dealing with the increased, and actually bolting has a lot to do with daylight too. It's not just the stress on the plants. So I do think the decreasing daylight hours can kind of help. So again, it's just all about trying to keep the stress off the plants as much as possible with water, with shade, and starting with transplants.
Do you have a favorite variety for cabbage that you'd recommend? Because I'm thinking, oh, I should try that.
Yeah, I haven't tried a ton of different varieties. So the ones that we typically grow, Omero is the purple cabbage.
Okay.
Tiara is usually the green cabbage. Actually, one that I really like that's kind of unique is called Caraflex. Caraflex is a cone cabbage, so it looks a little different. It's it's pointy. Really good for making sauerkraut. That's kind of, I think, the main thing that people like Caraflex for. I really like Caraflex.
Oh my gosh, I just Googled a picture of it. It really is like cones.
Yeah.
Never seen something like that.
And actually, the one thing about Caraflex too is Caraflex is really susceptible to cracking. So in the summer, if you're growing it, spring into summer, it's building that head right when the heat is hitting. And with any sort of inconsistent moisture, if it sits a little too long in the field, it'll burst. And literally, it will explode. Like, I'm not joking. It'll literally go pow and scare you. So, growing into the fall, it's like, okay, by time it's forming that head, you're getting a little more moderate temperatures, maybe a little more rain. So, yeah, Caraflex is a really good one. And then haven't grown a ton of Napa cabbage. The one variety that we did grow is Minuet. I find the Napa cabbage is very pest prone, even with netting. I struggle with it a little bit with just earwigs and like a little more than the hardier cabbages. So, Napa cabbage a little bit more of a struggle, but Minuet is the one. And I think pretty much all of those are hybrid varieties too, and that can actually be a really key point as well. Like if you're looking at growing in difficult conditions, sometimes looking at the hybrids can help with that, because a lot of them have been bred with characteristics, to be heat tolerant, bolt resistant, and really pay attention to, like, good seed companies will often mention, like, this is perfect for, summer into fall growing, or this is an early crop variety, right? So don't just shrug that information off. Like, really kind of focus on the characteristics of the variety and the time of year that it's good to be grown in, and maybe looking at hybrids that can hack it a little bit more with the heat and the drought.
All right.
But yeah, give it a try. I think you'll be surprised. Yeah,
I definitely will, because like I'm looking at my beds right now, and I've got a few that are opening up. And they're going to have nothing in them, so I might as well try to grow that and see how it works.
For sure.
The other thing I was going to mention, because we're going back round, so I might try a second batch of carrots, which is going to be really tricky to germinate, for sure. But I'm going to try the board technique, where you like put the board on top of it, and just I've got the watering system, so hopefully that will keep it moist. Mm-hmm. And then the trick is like peeking under the board every day to make sure I catch them at the day that they sprout and not any later.
Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to water twice a day with these current temps. That does a lot to keep the soil moist enough for the germination, and especially if you've got them covered.
Okay. And the other thing I was thinking about for carrots is every time I try to grow them, it's so tricky to keep the weeds out, because they're so small. You got to wait for them to germinate. You can't really like mulch them, because the mulch is going to be too much for even like the carrot seeds. So I'm debating putting them in a green stalk just to see how that does, because I've got one green stalk in the shade on my back on the deck. And it doesn't get that much sunlight, but it's also in the shade pretty much all day. So it's nice and cooler relatively. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to see how that goes and see if I can get anything out of it. I kind of doubt it, but worth a shot.
I had my best carrots this year out of my green stalk. I actually made a mistake, and I planted Danvers in the green stalk when I actually meant to plant Littlefinger in the green stalk, and I swapped. So I did the little carrots in my big raised beds, and I did the big carrots by accident in the green stalk. They turned out amazing. Picture perfect. They were straight. They were 10, 12 inches long, no deformities whatsoever. I had maybe 3 to 4 per pocket. You do have to be a little bit more careful about thinning them out. But the fluffier soil, the consistent moisture, I will absolutely be growing carrots in a green stalk again. So I think you'll be surprised with how well they do.
And to germinate those, you just did the soil technique where you just kept the soil moist.
Yep.
And that's
so I take a trowel and just, a little line in the potting mix, sprinkle across. You don't have to be super precise, but just don't flood the pocket with them. Yeah. And then cover them. Now, I know you have your irrigation system where you water with those for the first 2 weeks or so, go ahead and use a watering hose
Mhm.
or your watering can to do top watering.
Yeah.
Um, like I say, daily. If you do the misting setting on your sprayer, do that a couple of times a day, just where you can with this heat. But like I said, I think you'll be really surprised at how well it does.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that. Just the other day, my kids were like out there and they came back and they're like, "Daddy, we got carrots," and they like pulled up a bunch of carrots. I'm like, "Oh, that's great," but they had another month to stay in the ground still. But
Well,
oh well.
if you're interested, I'm growing they call it a true baby carrot variety just because, it's not like the baby carrots in the grocery store
it's
where
a
they just
fast growing?
core it and polish it. So it's just a small variety carrot. It's called Little Fingers. So that could maybe be a fun space efficient one to try. It's fast growing and it's perfect size for the kids to pull and be like, "It's a carrot," and you'll be like, "Yes, it is."
Yep, that's the same variety that I accidentally planted in my raised beds.
Nice.
So it was crazy. The carrot greens were like 3 feet tall, and then the carrots were only 5 to 6. So
Mhm.
that was just, you're out working in the garden, you got your seed packets, and I just somehow got them switched up. But
It's nice
they
to know
grew
that
well.
they both did well, even though you swapped them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I had really good luck. There's one more that the kids might like. Paratonga, I think it is. I can't. Don't quote me. I'll look it up and we'll put that in the show notes. But they're
Okay.
little bulb carrots. They're rounder and they're just little balls. They're great for containers.
Like the
And
Paris Market style carrots.
yes, yes.
Those are so cool.
So, and if you've got a little bit of a shorter season, those are great because they mature faster than something like the Danvers might.
Okay. All right. A lot of good growing ahead. Aaron, round 2. What are you planting in the fall?
Well, my next thing is going to be beets.
Yeah.
So a lot of market growers will do successions of beets basically from as soon as they can get in the ground in the spring right through till the fall. I didn't do that for a number of different reasons. Some of it is kind of marketing related, just as much as, space and other things.
Mhm.
But I am going to do a round of fall beets because, first of all, again, it's kind of the perfect time to grow beets. They like that transition. They're not too bad to germinate in the heat. It's a little bit bigger seed, so it's not, like you're trying to germinate carrots or lettuce. It's a little bit more tolerant, grows into the cool weather. And then again, it's the time of year where people really get excited to have beets, right? Like I know in the summer you can do, summer salads with grilled beets and things like that. But to me, fall is like the quintessential time where you really start craving those hearty root vegetables and you want to do the mixes and the roasted vegetables. So yeah, so for me, it's going to be a little bit of an experiment just to see how it goes over. I know there's a lot of other vendors at market that offer beets. So we'll see if there's room for one more.
Do you do any
one more
fancy?
beet vendor.
Do you have any fancy varieties that you grow to differentiate or?
So I'm trying one. It's called Merlin. I haven't grown it before. It's supposed
Sounds
to.
magical.
I think they advertised. Let me see if I have the packet here. I think they advertised it as the sweetest beet. Yeah, so it's Merlin. It's a hybrid.
Yeah.
Sweet, smooth, red beets. Yeah, it doesn't say, but I think they sold it to me as being the sweetest. So I'm like, okay. In terms of what else is available, there's the color options. So you've got the pink beets or the candy cane beets. You've got the golden beets, which are kind of like an orangey color on the outside, yellow on the inside.
Like a sweet potato color.
Yeah, and the nice thing is they don't bleed. Like when you're cutting a purple beet, there's a lot of staining, but cutting these other colored beets, there's not so much. I have grown a white beet in the past. I wasn't super impressed with it because I thought it just looked like the larger standard size turnips and just didn't polish up quite as nicely. Still nice beet flavor, but it just wasn't as visually impressive as I thought. Cylindra is a great one. I've grown that personally just for me. I loved it because it literally grows in like a nice long cylinder. So it's great for people who want a can because it's easy to slice and get into the canning. Good flavor. But again, at market, like I think if you're retailing beets, the cylinder would be better to sell in like bulk. Like the people who want to can beets, they want really big volumes, right? So that's maybe a little bit more than I'm looking to produce. So we're gonna give these Merlins a try, see if they live up to their name.
Yeah, sounds great. Mylan.
I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball. I'm
Right.
going to do another round of tomatoes, but I'm going to go with the smaller variety. So I didn't do a lot of the cherry style tomatoes this half of the year because I wanted to focus on my bigger slicers. So I'm going to go the golden sweet cherry tomatoes is one of the ones that I'm looking forward to. I'll be able to get those going, get a few harvests before the frost hits. And then, if I do get a frost, there's not quite that heartbreak that, hits if you've got monster tomatoes on the vine and they get hit. That's where I like to do these.
Every year, the frost hits and my cherry tomatoes just fall to the ground. And then the next year, there's a bunch of volunteers.
Yeah.
Because, same thing with the tomatillos. Where you are in Atlanta, this time of year, is it possible to start them from seed or do you need to buy a transplant to do tomatoes?
I can start from seed just because I am a major gardening nerd and I've got indoor-outdoor setups.
Okay.
They can be harder to find in, the big box stores, but that's where you really need to know your local nurseries because they'll have starts, or something that I've learned is you can get cuttings. If you have cherry tomatoes going already, or if you've got somebody who does, if you just take a snip a branch, put it in some water, in 3 weeks or so, you've got it rooted and ready to plant. You do have to, go through the hardening off process there, but that's one way to get around a second round of tomatoes.
Have you ever done that personally?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
It works really well.
Okay. I've never tried it. It sounds like a really cool science experiment for sure.
Yeah, they take off, especially like I said, with it being warm. You can do it outside in an area that's just not getting blasted by the sun. So on like the northern side of your house where you get, the reflection of the sun, they do really well. Watch the water. Don't let it, get brown. Change it weekly or so. You can do those indoors too. And tomatoes root really, really quickly. And just while we're on that subject, basil is one that you could do like that. It's a crop that'll be, pretty advanced stage at this time of year. So if you want some fresher plants, basil is one that does that. Several more that you can root and transplant.
Yeah, tomatoes and basil are always really super easy. Like you just put them in the water and they go. The one thing with tomatoes is you do want to try to find like a sucker. So basically there's sort of two ways you can identify the sucker. So one is you follow one of the main stems and then you'll see a leaf coming out, and then in the elbow, so in the little L between the stem and the leaf, there'll be a third plant part coming out, and it looks more like an actual tomato plant. So it's a little more frilly at the top, whereas a leaf is more sort of spread out and fanning out. So look in the elbow, look for that little tomato plant shooting out of the elbow. Those are really easy to just, snip off or pick off and root them, and they'll grow really quick.
Very nice. I am all out of great ideas. Does anyone else have more suggestions? for the fall.
So we'll do a shameless plug. The number one thing that you need to be doing this time of year is logging into the Planter app and start planning the layout of your fall garden, because that's going to really determine what you can plant, right? You know, if you've got pepper plants so in my case, my pepper plants will stay in the ground. They're going to go till the frost hits and actually takes them out. My tomato plants, because I do determinate, they're about done. I've got those ripening now, and so they'll be coming out of the raised beds here pretty soon. So what I'm going to need to do is look at where my pepper plants are, what younger plants that I can plant, you know, around them that they're not too shaded, which actually works well for the brassicas and the things that don't want to get, you know, blasted by the sun. But yeah, so log into the app, look at your existing layouts, remove those plants, you know, from your gardening layout, and that's going to kind of give you some ideas of how much room that you have. So that is going to put you in position to not only free up that space, but you're now going to be able to rotate and put in a plant that's got different needs than the original plant did, and that's going to maintain your soil health. So shameless plug there. Download and install the Planter app. Get your garden layout going.
Thanks,
100%. Yeah. And the only other thing I would add to that as well is as you're looking at the space that you can potentially free up, you can be thinking a few weeks ahead as well. So when I look at my garden, it's like, okay, there's the things that are donezo right now, very clear. In some cases, they've already been pulled. And then there's other things where it's like, okay, now I'm sort of thinking ahead 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, this is probably going to come out. That's probably going to come out. And then when you start looking at that, then you can start seeding indoors as well. So, you know, if you want to seed outdoors, you need that space free right now. But if you're seeding indoors, you're kind of getting that space is doing double duty, because at the same, you know, 2-3 week period, you've got the next succession growing and you've got an active crop still in there producing harvest, right? So if you can just think that little bit ahead to say, okay, you know, in a couple of weeks, my cucumbers are going to be done. I'm going to start some lettuce indoors right now. It'll be great because it's not getting blasted by the heat. They're both growing at the same time. And as soon as those cucumbers are ready to go, I've got my healthy lettuce transplants ready to go in. And the nice thing, we haven't really talked about leafy greens yet, but the really nice thing about the leafy greens is they're so easy to get started indoors, even if you don't have a big, fancy, complicated setup. You know, they're very space efficient. In a lot of cases, a leafy green, you could even potentially do that in a windowsill or, you know, on a patio. That's another great option, right? Especially if you have a nice shaded spot, you know, under a gazebo or a pergola. Just throw a few lettuce seeds in and you'll have them ready to go in your garden when some space opens up.
Yeah, I'm really excited to grow some more bok choy this fall. So
nice.
Yeah.
And to Aaron's point, the leafy greens actually do really well with multi-sowing, so you can sow them a little heavier in your transplant pot, thin them out. Or what I really like to do is just harvest them smaller. So I like baby greens. You're so used to paying more for those in the store, and here in the U.S. we've got some issues with a lot of the leafy greens. So this is another reason why we kind of encourage people to, you know, grow some of those things on your own. But yeah, you can do those in smaller containers and then transplant them out to their final space. And so you can sow them a little bit heavier than you would something like a tomato or a pepper.
Great advice all around. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm kind of excited for fall, but not that excited, but still summer. Gosh darn it. I haven't even gone to the beach yet.
Oh, okay. Now that makes a difference. That does make a difference.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening to this episode. We do have a email address where you can email us your question at planter.garden. So please, if you're listening and you have a question, just shoot us an email and we'll be happy to answer it on an episode in the future. Until next time, thanks for listening, and bye.